the problem I have with the premise is that right now in today's society, women are often believed, and there's the court of public opinion that often takes priority over the actual court. Yesterday, Representative Nancy Mace dropped some private footage as part of, I believe it was congressional testimony to push for passing some anti-voyeurism legislation.
Exhibit 1, behind me is a screenshot from one of the videos I found of myself. The yellow circle, this naked silhouette, is my naked body. I didn't know that I had been filmed. I didn't give my consent. I didn't give my permission. And this particular video that Patrick Bryant recorded of me on his secret camera, he saved for over 3 years without my knowledge. I didn't pick this fight. I don't even want to be here today and discuss this.
Please welcome to the program, Representative from South Carolina, Nancy Mace. And you can follow her on X, and I say her in the biological sense, Rep. Nancy Mace. Representative Mace, thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me and bringing attention to this very important issue for women and girls all across the country.
Well, okay, I have some follow-up questions. Could you, the floor is yours, explain to people who may not be familiar with this, what is this important issue and what are you looking to achieve?
We're talking about peeping toms and voyeurism. Voyeurism being those individuals who film other people in compromising positions, intimate, nude, that sort of thing. And I shared some examples of upskirt shots, nude imagery and videos yesterday in my hearing, because I myself have just recently been through this over the last year and a half, and uncovering all these videos I found. I identified some other potential victims, other potential women, and it's had devastating consequences for them. And I've learned so much about federal law and also state law. You know, Democrats tout the Violence Against Women Act as being this holy grail for victims like women of this kind of situation. It actually does nothing for them. And so I've drafted a couple pieces of legislation like the Sue Voyeurs Act that creates a civil right of action or a civil tort for those who've been victims of voyeurism or peeping toms, because there is no civil right of action at the federal level. And then also, it's not criminal to do this at the federal level under Title 18. It's only criminal in certain maritime jurisdictions, think cruises, or tribal lands. And under state law in South Carolina is much weaker. Like the screenshot you just showed of that clip of my silhouette, naked silhouette on the screen there, first offense is a misdemeanor and a $500 fine in South Carolina, which is, it's appalling that it's that little, and it's disgusting. It should be far worse. The penalty should be far higher than that.
Can I ask you, has anyone been charged with misdemeanors or fines in South Carolina where this took place?
Not in this particular case yet, because there's still an ongoing investigation. And that's part of some of the victims' frustration, is that this thing has gone on for more than a year and a half. These people are walking free. But also in the last couple of months, you know, in working with these victims, I'm uncovering all kinds of cases that are not getting the justice they deserve. In the county where this crimes took place, there are over 350 cases of murder and attempted murder that are on the docket for probably close to the last decade and haven't been tried. We have pedophiles that are walking free. I've shown some cases of those. We've got a guy in this same county who had 1,900 images of kids as young as 3 being raped by animals and adults. Ugh. And the guy got 1 day served in jail, was time served. He's on the streets of South Carolina walking free. We have there's a murder case up the road where a guy was chasing some other man 9 miles down the road and shot him 15 times in the back, and hasn't been no trial. So Sure. What I've learned from this experience over the last year and a half is there's so much of a broken system, and sometimes the lawyers involved, sometimes it's judges, solicitors, attorney generals, et cetera. We have a really broken criminal and justice system in this country.
Well, okay, so I want to get to, and of course I know that you've faced some criticism for this, and I want to give you a chance to respond to those. Obviously, in this case, I would imagine, since you presented that video, you have this video and you've turned it over, there would be that would be significant evidence, and it would be kind of surprising if nothing is being done about that, because right. That in tandem with some of the, well, I guess I have to say claims or the statements that you made yesterday are really serious, and I want people to see those so that they know what it is that was stated.
Starting on November 5th, 2023, I discovered my former fiance, Patrick Bryant, had filmed women without their knowledge, without their permission, and without their consent. He's able to rape other women, film them. This is one of the rape victims that I discussed in my February 10th floor speech. As you can tell, she's on the couch and she's unconscious, passed out, blacked out. I think she was roofied. We don't know. We never will know. And the tape of her being assaulted by the business partner of Patrick Bryant, John Osborne, this rape tape was saved for years. Patrick Bryant allegedly raped at least 3 women.
And obviously, it's a very specific name and very specific claims, right? Raping at least 3 women, drugging, roofing. I also heard the word underage there. One of the criticisms is that you are relying on congressional immunity where you make these accusations, right, as opposed to in a court of law, or especially in the post-Me Too era. What do you say to those people that that's the only place you've made these claims definitively?
Well, it will not be the only place I make these claims. I don't even consider these allegations. I mean, to me, this is a fact. This is what I witnessed, what I saw, what I stand by, and I stand by every word, both of my February 10th floor speech and what I stated yesterday in my hearing. I will have a chance and an opportunity to say this under oath in a court of law, hopefully sooner than later. And I won't get into too many details, but that's already in motion. And, I dare these folks these predators to sue me, because I very much look forward to discovery and the depositions that will come along with it. And
well, one of them is, though, right?
What's that?
One of the men in question is suing you.
Yes, there was already one case, and that falls into the speech and debate clause, or the Westfall Act is the way that I interpret the Constitution. But I will absolutely have an opportunity, and everything I've stated publicly, I have also stated to investigators privately. And so I've sat down with investigators, I believe 3 times in the last year and a half. And then, of course, in my speaking with other potential victims, I've uncovered more potential wrongdoing, more potential victims, more potential information that validates my experience and the experiences of other women. And so it's also, for me, the reason I did the floor speech and the reason I did this hearing is because I've learned how much failure there is in the system at the federal level, which is where I, as a member of Congress, have a say, whether it's the Violence Against Women Act, whether it's men in women's spaces. I am vehemently opposed to men being in women's bathrooms, showers, locker rooms. And part of that vehement, anger that I have about men being in private spaces is because of the experience that I just went through, this trauma a year and a half ago when I uncovered all these things. You can imagine my shock and awe to discover, holy shit, this guy, this monster had videos of me undressed, and he saved them for over 3 years. I had no idea. I didn't have any knowledge of it. I didn't give my permission. There was no consent. And then the fact that he saved these videos of me for over 3 years was really terrifying. And I sometimes I feel hopeless. And then I meet and talk to all these other potential victims.
I do have 2 questions. Sorry, I just want to, are any of those other victims pressing charges? Are they going through the court process? And to be clear, you are standing by the claim that Patrick Bryant
100%.
raped 3 women and some were roofied and underage.
Well, that's the assumption in some of the cases. So with some of the women, it seems a lot like roofing. And I said yesterday, I believed one of them, and actually probably more based on women that I've spoken to. Now, some of the women who are victims are too afraid to come forward, and I'm going to be their voice. Others have come forward. And I encouraged women yesterday who think or believe they may be a victim within this group of individuals to call the state law enforcement division. Or we have a tip line with our office that we will provide their information confidentially to the appropriate law enforcement officials. But if I went to law enforcement and falsely reported a crime, that is a crime. And, is something I have never done and would never do. But I've sat down with them 3 times. I'll sit down with them again if I have to. And then I will testify under oath to the same exact statements I made both in the hearing and in the floor speech. And I expect to be able to do that. I expect I will have an opportunity to do that.
Right. Is it sometimes a complication? Because I know this being on air all the time, where if you are planning on pressing charges and going through that process, speaking publicly in a separate form can be a problem. Since this investigation has been going on since 2023. And I wanted to ask, so you're saying women have come forward against these specific men? So there are other women who are claiming to be victims and pressing charges?
Correct. Yes, multiple women.
Okay. And theirs are roofied, raped? Are any underage, or is it voyeurism?
I would say the allegations are all of the above, including, potential CSAM or child sexual abuse material. That allegation, I've not been able to verify that, but that is an allegation that a few folks have come forward with. And, time will tell. I think one of my frustration and the frustration.
But was it on the tape? Because you implied that there was underage sexual abuse in the tapes.
Not yesterday. I didn't say anything about CSAM yesterday.
Okay, but
since my core speech, there are some people who have come forward about potential CSAM with one of the individuals mentioned in that speech.
Let me ask you, I want to ask this, did this man or these men, I think there's 4 or 5, right, who are included in I don't know, is it 4 or 5?
It's 4, but it's various locations at different locations, it's complex because they're different people, different locations, different victims, different potential wrongdoing and crimes. It's a complicated case.
But there are no charges or convictions yet.
None yet. And that's part of the frustration. Like, I went to authorities in December of 2023. And if you saw the whole hearing and saw my introduction, to me, it's very cut and dry. It's black and white. Like, the threshold for probable cause is so very low. And if you add on top of it, I brought witnesses, I brought victims forward, I brought footage forward with metadata, date and timestamps, file names, folders of where these things were saved, the devices where they were saved. Most investigations, when you have someone come forward, you just have some hearsay. You just have, hey, I saw this. I did a lot more than that. I literally delivered on a silver platter. Here is evidence that you can use right now to go make the arrest, and they haven't done it yet. And, that's why, I'm so passionate about this. It's like,
why do you think they haven't, though? Because that is not normal in these cases. I mean, especially after Me Too, where we have men who were accused, and you have to balance. I have a son and I have a daughter, and I'm very worried about her with predators, but I'm equally worried about him being falsely accused. We've seen men be railroaded, and it turns out they didn't do anything. So if there's all of this evidence, why do you think there have been no charges, no convictions, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be anytime soon?
Well, I think that SLED confirmed this week that they were going to provide whatever their investigative file is over to the solicitor at some point. But this is the problem with South Carolina. It is a completely corrupt system. So one of the attorneys, for example, of one of the predators in this case, headlined a fundraiser for the solicitor who's taken this case by handling it herself. So her last fundraiser before her reelection last year was headlined by one of the attorneys for one of these men, or one or more of these men. It's just the conflict of interest is massive. The attorney general who should be championing this case is going to run for governor. I might run for governor. So, when you have these conflicts of interest, there's a political bias, I believe, underneath. And then when you look at all the cases of rape or assault of women, domestic violence in South Carolina, I've talked to so many women who've gone to law enforcement or gone to the authorities for these kinds of cases, and then they just tell you, well, there's nothing we can do for you. And I hear that over and over.
I know
you're
running. I know you mentioned the AG, and that was a thing, right? That was a little bit of a controversy because you said that he was dragging his feet, and I do know that he said, "Hey, I hadn't heard anything about this until the public statements." And you have his cell phone number. You've gone to a lot of events. Did you, since you have access to him personally, did you bring this up to him personally before the public testimony?
My attorney did. One of my attorneys brought it up to him at an event. But here's the thing: my speech was in February. It's now almost June. And instead of saying, hey, you're right, this is such an egregious case, instead of saying, let's get justice for these victims, let's change our state laws in South Carolina because they're so weak for women, instead he's attacked me as a victim. He's attacked me for coming forward.
Well, you kind of attacked him first. I mean, I just want to say, I want to be, because this is a very complicated issue. You did say he was dragging his feet, and that almost makes him seem like he's aiding and abetting rape systemically. If I was I probably wouldn't be thrilled about that either. I'd go, well, that's not true. I only saw it when you were out there publicly on C-SPAN.
Well, he is letting pedophiles walk free, and that's a fact. And I've been putting that information out there as well.
Okay, well, that's fine. But then he's not attacking you, right? You're both attacking each other. I think that's important, because we need to be better on the right than doing the victim thing, either him or you.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I hear that loud and clear from folks. But here's the thing: I waited 11 months to get a victim's rights advocate in my case. 11 months, and you know how I got the victim's rights advocate? I got it through his office. So I knew he was well aware. There's no way, with as high profile as an individual as I am and as an elected official, there's no way in October of last year, when I got my victim's rights advocate through his office, that he had no idea. I mean, either you're incompetent or you're ignorant. And that's the only, that's the only answer there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could also be, AGs, this is not really their job, obviously, to go forward, like from the base level. It would need to come from the police department first. So I think maybe there's a miscommunication there where maybe he didn't know, and then maybe he felt attacked, and then he kind of came back at you. So, I hate to see that kind of infighting, especially over something as serious as, underage rape accusations. And I really don't want this to get muddied when truth is paramount in all of this. And I know that you were running against him, potentially. People talk about this as governor. Let me ask you this. When you because I wouldn't know about this unless you came forward. It sounds to me like you're saying this is to raise awareness because the justice system has not been very just. Did Mr. Bryant at any point threaten to use this, disseminate this material? Did he give it out to anyone else?
I have no idea, and I hope that the investigation will shed light on that, because I have no idea where this material went. So I just don't have those answers, and that's again another frustration I have of knowing this person carried this around for years. What did he do with it? Why did he have it? Why did he save it? Why did he catalog it? Why did he store it? And what was he going to use it for, or what had he used it for? But also the experience has informed me legislatively on all these bills, whether it's about rape kits. I'm filing a bill this week that would prohibit rapists from suing their rape victims.
Well, hold on a second. Can they sue if it's a false allegation? Because I think we need to have an equal punishment for.
I think that's fair. And I have a son like you. I have a son and I have a daughter. My fears are the same. My fears for my daughter are the same as your fears for your daughter. My fears for my son are the same as your fears for your son. I've had to have very frank conversations with my son about false allegations, because that is a problem. And the women that come forward and make false claims do a great disservice to real victims when they come after or come later, because women aren't believed generally. And so, that's tough. And so that has to be, you have to tamp down.
Well, hold on a second. That sounds like covert women are very much believed. I mean, we have example after example in the Me Too era. The problem was the proliferation of false.
They are. Not Democrats don't believe women. So
No. That's the opposite. Aziz Ansari had a bad date, for crying out loud. I mean, you look at a guy like Chris Hardwick. He's a Democrat. I was in defending people. I'm going, well, this is not the same as rape. You went over to his hotel room at 2 a.m. There are plenty of sex out there. Mattress Girl, the guy at Columbia, never got to go to graduation, and it turns out she was sexually assaulting him. So I would disagree with that premise that women are not believed. She should be charged with
a crime and should face jail time. Women that do that should face jail time.
Yes, but the problem I have with the premise is that right now in today's society, women are often believed, and there's the court of public opinion that often takes priority over the actual courts, which is why I think you can understand, as you said, if you have a son, people being skeptical here. If this man didn't go out and disseminate it, is it possible? Because I will tell you this, when I look at it, it looks exactly like the security camera that I have in my living room. Is it a security camera that existed in the house that you knew was there, or you both knew were there, and then it stores automatically to the cloud? Because that would be the same of every sort of Ring camera, as it were.
Well, I found the brand of the camera and provided that information, the serial number, and the screenshots that I showed yesterday. I provided all that evidence over to law enforcement. Again, these are questions that I have. I don't know if it was on the cloud. One would presume, because a lot of them are on the cloud. I don't know how long they save it. Like, as soon as I found out about this, I reached out to the camera company to find out when it's deleted, does it stay on the cloud? Because oftentimes once it's deleted, it's gone. And that was hard to hear too. So a lot of my questions can't be answered until I see what the investigation turns up, because I'm not an investigator.
Right.
I'm not a detective. I'm just this person who accidentally found these files and was like, what the hell? And I identified some of the women. And some of the victims I talked to clearly didn't know they were being recorded, whether they saw the camera or not. And they were told they were not being recorded. And then let's just say, quote, it is a security camera and was used for security. But there were no security cameras on the outside of that property, which is odd. You'd think if you had security cameras, you'd have cameras all over the place, inside, outside, wherever. And that wasn't the case. And so even if it was a security camera, why would you just save the naked videos of women? Why would you save only the naked videos of women and nothing else? Like, it's
only the videos of naked women of these crimes were what was saved, nothing else?
That's what I saw. I didn't see any security camera footage. I saw footage of women who were naked, lots of it, video after video after video. And I was able to identify several women on that camera and other cameras. I found up to potentially four recording devices. And this stuff that I found spanned almost a decade, long before I ever met my former fiance. This was years in the making before I ever knew him. But I was able to identify several victims, and I provided all that information, of course, to law enforcement.
What was the brand of camera?
It was an Arlo brand camera. You can see that on the screenshot. I believe one of the screenshots I had yesterday. That particular device at one point had 10,633 videos on it based on the screenshot I had.
Oh, but they're not usually hidden cameras, Arlo's. Like it's one of the brands that they set up. I mean, especially when I had when my children were very young, I had these cameras out there in case, something happens.
His excuse has been, oh, it's a security camera. Okay, well, why did you only have videos of naked women on it? I don't that doesn't scream security camera to me. That seems
if there are only videos of naked women, yes, that certainly would not. That's basically a modern day pair of binoculars. But if that's not the, I mean, again, I know most people here who have. Some of us have Arlo's. I was going to. You said this footage goes back 10 years.
I have footage going back. It was at the time when I found it, roughly 8 years of upskirt photos of women's genital areas, photography, images, videos. I saw almost a decade worth of stuff.
How did you get this, by the way? Since you had this before an investigation, how did you come upon this footage?
We went to couples counseling, and the couples counseling said, hey, to rebuild trust in your relationship, you need to give her access to your phone. So he put my thumbprint on his phone, so my biometrics were on there, and I was allowed to go on his phone at any time. And that's when I accidentally uncovered all. I wasn't expecting that. Wasn't something I was looking for. Wasn't expecting it. It was a real shock to the system. And when I found it, I took a couple of screenshots and I handed everything over to law enforcement. Again, it's not my job to be investigator or detective. It is law enforcement's job to do that. And I hope and pray that they're doing an extensive investigation and that justice is brought for all these victims, and that at the same time we reshape federal and state law to do better.
So you're going through couples therapy and he gave you the passcode or the biometric unlocking mechanism to his phone while you guys are, I assume, in somewhat dire straits, and didn't delete non-consensual footage on the phone that you had access to?
Oh, he definitely was transferring footage, and I showed a screenshot yesterday of files that were being transferred off his device. He got a second device, I said yesterday. Like, I saw a second device hit our Wi-Fi like that same day. It was the Tiramisu operating system. A couple weeks later, he would replace his Android S22 with an Android S23. And there's some indication in data indicating that he may have been transferring terabytes of data, terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of data, which would indicate lots and lots of photos and videos, thousands of files potentially.
Okay, wow. Yeah, that's terabytes. That's a lot, especially if you're going back 8 years where it's pre-HD. That's many, many hours. Yeah. But you did get this while you two were still in a relationship is when you found the footage. Yeah.
I mean, I got the hell out as soon as I found out about it. It took me about a week. I wanted to just get all my ducks in a row. I had children. I've had a tumor that month as well, and I had to have surgery. And so I had all these things going on, and it took me about, a week to 10 days to make sure I had all my things in order to be able to leave. Okay. I fled.
Let me ask you this. How do you balance, because you just said you had a son, and I don't know if, Gerald, you had a question that you wanted to ask, but how do you balance, like you just said, being concerned for a son and a daughter, due process, obviously post-Me Too, which was spearheaded by Democrats, where it was a witch hunt, and obviously protecting victims of actual rape and sexual abuse?
Mm-hmm. How do I balance that?
Yeah, with this legislation, how do we balance those things? Because, I disagree with the premise that women are not believed. So, for example, that legislation that you proposed, would it still permit, or would it allow, I should say, victims of false accusations of rape to sue their accuser or have equal criminal penalties? Like, how do we balance this out?
It doesn't have to do with false allegations. It has to do with real crimes and convictions. It doesn't have to do with false allegations, number one. Number two, when I talk about my Sue Voyeurs Act, that is creating a civil tort at the federal level. When Democrats did the Violence Against Women Act, there was no civil right of action. Women couldn't sue federally, civilly over being filmed in this way. They will be able to do that with the Sue Voyeurs Act. With the Stop Voyeurs Act, we expand the federal prohibition against voyeurism. So it's only illegal federally to film women in this manner in certain maritime jurisdictions or tribal lands. And so this would expand that very narrow definition to make it a crime under Title 18 of the Federal U.S. Code of Laws for voyeurism. And so those two specific things are what I've done federally. I've also worked with state lawmakers to draft a bill to strengthen South Carolina state law because it's a misdemeanor and a $500 fine on first offense. That particular bill would make it a felony and make the financial penalties significantly higher because we want to deter these people as much as we can on the very first offense, and then it gets worse from there. And so I've been working with state lawmakers, and then of course I have my own legislation at the federal level based on the experiences I uncovered with all of these women.
Sure, I know, and I appreciate you giving us your time, Gerald. I know you have a question. I know, and by the way, everyone out there, you can follow her and send her your questions at Rep Nancy Mace on X. Yes, Gerald.
Yeah. So, and again, thanks, and we're all on the same page here. Like, bury the pedophiles under the jail. You know, like these guys should be getting long prison sentences if what we're claiming is true. I think the question that I had for you is, I've had a theory about this that I'm really worried about. We've seen people try it in the media before. I'm not saying that's what you're doing, by the way. I just want to set this up because you're somebody who's experiencing this, and I think your opinion would be very valid. I am of the mindset that to balance this out and make sure that justice is served and people aren't taken, like Brett Kavanaugh, taken through the media, basically just to smear his name, right?
Sure.
We shouldn't be making names public and accusations this dire. I mean, these are very serious accusations that somebody has been raped and some people's privacy has been violated.
Child rape,
at the very least. Yeah, no, there's a lot of very serious allegations here until a legal process has gone through. And I wonder what your opinion is on that, because I understand that there are problems potentially with that because we want to hold people accountable. Sometimes the justice system doesn't do us justice, essentially, or it takes so long to do justice that justice is really delayed and that's kind of denied. But at the same time, haven't we seen so many people's lives ruined? You cannot unring the bell. It doesn't matter how many times you go out and tell people that Johnny Depp didn't do what Amber Heard said. He's still not working. He's still not getting that time back. He's still not getting the contracts back for Trevor Bauer. You're still not having Brett Kavanaugh's kids not think that, hey, did something happen with my dad where he was drunk and raped somebody? So shouldn't there be some more protections here to make sure that everybody is protected in the system and it doesn't swing one way or the other with allegations being made in public that are very specific when cases haven't been tried yet?
Well, I think that, in this particular instance, I am exposing what is completely shattered and broken and corrupt in South Carolina's court system and justice system. If I had not spoken up, there would be no investigation. And in fact, one of the rape victims didn't get her victim's rights advocate until the day of my speech on February 10th, 6 months later, after she came forward.
And that's appalling, and I agree. And pardon me for interrupting, but could that also have been done without saying names, is my question. And it's a genuine question. It's not an assertion.
I just want to clarify, hasn't there been an ongoing, you just said police investigation since 2023? So that would be before your statements, right?
But she didn't get the advocate until 6 months.
This other person, but I mean for yourself, yeah.
Or 11 months,
Different victims have come forward at different times of the investigation. Now, remember, I didn't know who all the women were right up front. I had to go find some of them and identify them. I did that because our state law enforcement wasn't doing that. 6 months into the quote investigation, to my knowledge, they hadn't contacted any victims.
Yeah. Well, that's terrible.
That was a real problem for me.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
But what about but for you, because you made your claims, right? You can't, some victims may not, like you said, want to come forward, but that's been open since 2023. Before you came out and stated his name publicly. Like, let's say, because this is the question people have, and I know that, and I appreciate you allowing us to be fair. There could be a universe in which Nancy Mace and this Mr. Bryant had a very ugly falling out. You got these while you were together and then used it against him, and the investigation reveals that there is actually no crime. Like, if that happens, should he be able to sue you?
Well, hey, it doesn't really matter. Let's just say there was a very nasty breakup. Let's just say it was the worst in the world. That doesn't negate that I was filmed without my knowledge, without my permission, without my consent, and those videos were saved for years. And that's not okay, not by any standard. And so it didn't really matter, that part of it. But add on top of that, I find all these other potential victims and all this potential other wrongdoing, and to see really nothing happening, and only because of the public attention is the investigation moving forward. I Honestly, I expect very little out of this because that is very typical of South Carolina and the justice system. I mean, there's a case in Myrtle Beach where the guy was chased 9 miles down the road, shot 15 times in the back, no charges. And when, now the feds are stepping in. I am going to ask the feds to step in on this and provide some oversight because there's been, I believe, obstruction of justice by the solicitor and other issues that underscore the political bias and the unfair way that some of the victims have been treated. Some of us feel like we've been treated like criminals and the criminals treated like victims. And that's not the way the system is supposed to work. Like, victims have rights. They're supposed to be protected. Their identity is supposed to be protected. The witness intimidation is not supposed to be allowed by law. And the solicitor will not prosecute for witness intimidation. And there have been numerous examples of it over the last couple of months. And so when you see the system break down in the way that it has, this is the only recourse we have.
You're right. That has to be that is unconscionable that stuff is still out there. And I 100% agree, but I want to laser in on the point. I agree with you. More attention has to be brought to this. That's that public pressure. Good. Make sure this stuff gets changed. Did his name have to be used to accomplish that? Because it's a bell that cannot be unrung. You may be 100% right in this case, but what about some of the other cases we've seen in the past and yet future where maybe a name gets dropped in public and people drag them through the social media hellscape that happens after that, and the media hellscape? You can't unring that bell. Did his name have to be used for you to be able to make this point?
100%. The hellscape that these women, the hellscape.
I agree with the women, but we're all on that same page, Representative. I'm trying to be very fair. I'm 100% like, bury these guys under the jails. Like
the guys who actually commit rape.
Yes, the guy who's committing rape and disseminating these pictures of the worst of the worst. We would kick their ass if they were in front of us. All of us agree on that. But you do understand the jeopardy we have where people's lives are being ruined by this. How do we balance that when public accusations include people's names while an investigation is going on? Is there a better way for us to accomplish all of it, to keep women safe, but also to make sure that men are not just going to, with no recourse? Like, you sue the lady who accused Trevor Bauer, but you're not going to get any money from her. She's just going to declare bankruptcy. You lost a $100 million contract. Like, that happens a lot. And I want to make sure that neither one of these things happen. That the rape doesn't happen, that the voyeurism doesn't happen, and that the men's names, if they don't have to be used, and I don't see a reason why they do yet. Maybe there is one.
Well, let Representative Mace.
Sorry.
Why did the name specifically? Because you said they revealed your identity. And again, I didn't know about this until you started speaking about it. So if they did that, that's horrible. And that would be the answer. But why did the name have to be used?
I believe that there is a present danger, particularly at some of the locations I mentioned in my speech where underage children are. I wanted to be sure that families and parents that I don't know that the general public knew that there are certain locations that I would not advise your child to go to because of some of what was being filmed or allegedly or being done at those locations with cameras. To me as a mom, I didn't have a choice. And as I went through the process of the last year and a half and I learned about all these other allegations and potential wrongdoing from parents who were aware of things being filmed about with underage children, potentially, all of that. To me, this is a clear and present danger. I can sit at one of the properties I mentioned in the speech. Okay. And so for me, this was like an immediate clear and present danger to my constituents, not only just to women, potentially underage girls as well. And I felt like I was doing my civic duty to protect my constituents. And then on top of that, I'm obviously doing the legislation, working with state lawmakers. I've got dozens of federal bills too, but this was an immediate, holy shit, oh my God, there are kids over at this property. Things are being allegedly filmed at this property, including potentially really bad things. That to me was like, we don't have time.
What really bad things though? Because I would imagine if children are at any property right near there, you have security camera footage to make sure that everything is kosher. What really is this? Are we talking about child rape at these properties with this Mr. Bryant?
Child rape. I haven't said that.
No,
I have not said that.
Sexual abuse.
I would say that things I would qualify as CSAM.
Yeah.
Potentially.
And again, these guys
from Mr. Bryant and these cameras
deserve every single ounce of punishment that we can get. But that moment was in 2023 when you found that information, right? Like that is the holy shit moment.
Well, yeah, but I've over the course of the last year and a half talking to potential victims, I've just learned so much more, and I'm informed by other potential wrongdoing and crimes. But then even since my February speech, I've had parents come forward with some claims, and they're really damning. And, kids are at risk as long as these certain individuals, at least one individual that I spoke about in my speech, if he's still free, kids are in danger and they should not be at that location. And so just, for me, it was like, I didn't have a choice. This is clear and present danger. I want to protect kids. I want to protect women. This is what I have to do. And I stand by every word I said in my floor speech. I stand by every word I said in my hearing yesterday. This can't go on, and I'm going to run through I'll run through a brick wall if I have to, but to protect my constituents and to protect kids and protect women across South Carolina, all across the country, really. I stand by everything.
Well, I hope that, and thank you for clearing some of that up. I hope that justice is served. It looks like it's going to go through this process, and with that amount of evidence, it would seem like there will be some people put in prison for life. Representative Nancy Mace, we appreciate you taking the time. I know it must be very difficult, and thank you for giving the floor to people who are giving you some tough questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate the tough questions. I like the colloquy, so thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Representative Nancy Mace, everybody. All right, and
yeah.
By the way, this is the first time I've ever
complicated.
I have this light, like we have to get, but we don't really have to get to breaks.
Yeah, sorry.
I was like, let her answer.
No, that was my fault. I just wanted to get like that point of, using names. None of it seemed like, none of it seemed like it really answered the question.
Yeah.
Except for the case she was trying to make was, well, there's a clear and present danger with children. And I'm like, well, that was in 2023 that there was a clear and present danger when you found that out. So if it was a holy shit moment, I have to do this right now to make sure these kids are safe. That would have been in 2023. And I'm not making an accusation. What I'm saying is that does not seem like the defense that I would say, oh, that makes sense.
She said the investigation wouldn't start. It started in 2023. There was just nothing coming of it, which, considering the evidence that we've been told exists, is odd.
Yeah, they need to look into that. And look, she answered some of the hard questions, but I really do think like you've got to balance these things out. You can't run guys' names through the mud and just run away when something doesn't come to fruition. There's no conviction or even facts come out that contradict your story. Not in her case, but in these other cases. So it's like, listen, I disagree with naming this person. This person could be the worst person on the planet, could have child porn, could have raped children. And I want this person to literally be buried under the jail, whether alive or dead. Doesn't matter to me if they did it.
If they did it.
If they did it. No, 100%.
But if it's something where they were going through couples counseling and she had a thumbprint, she accessed readily available footage that wasn't deleted, with security camera footage in a house where both of them were naked, and this was part of a rough breakup. Look, the criticisms are legitimate because a lot of guys, a lot more people who've gone through something like that than people who've been raped or have been subject to a roving rape group, which, if it's true, awful. Seems to defy some of the logic when you look at the timeline. And I see why people are being critical. I don't like the idea that women aren't believed, and I wanted to push back on that. That's just not true. The exact opposite is the truth. And I think that's a big reason that she came forward, because women are believed. Yeah. And this guy would have to be an idiot. I'm sorry, you'd have to be an idiot if you're like, oh yeah, we're already going to couples therapy because things are rough.
Yeah.
Here's my phone with crotch shots.
Yeah, that's bad. I mean, listen, I'm not defending in any way the actions if they turn out to be 100% what she said. Not at all. In fact, the very opposite. I'm questioning the methods, because the methods matter in this case. It matters for all of us. It matters for my 3 sons that I have going forward. It matters how we handle this stuff as a society to make sure that women are protected, but also to make sure that men who have no recourse in these situations don't lose everything over an allegation that is not true.
Do you think you'll ever have a sperm and egg that turns into a lady? It's just men for Gerald.
I do what I can, and apparently what I can is blonde-haired, blue-eyed, super tall boys.
One of whom is a serial killer, without a doubt.
Not yet.
Yeah, well, every time I see him, he tries to kill me. It's a rock, it's a frying pan.
Instincts. I can't turn that off.
Gerald will be talking about, hold on, what? He had a rock. He was going to hit you over the head with it. Like, what is he doing? You guys comment. Hey, let us know your thoughts here. We want to be as balanced as possible. Call balls and strikes. Hey, if this is the case, awful. If it's not the case,
and what the hell's going on in South Carolina that they're not getting to the bottom of this stuff that she's talking about? Get it done. Get it done. Find out what the facts are and either dismiss it or go.
By the way, I also have a problem with the idea that you can simply, make it a civil and a federal level if there's no crime. It's like, so it could turn out that there was no crime, but I can still sue you civilly. And that can be a problem. I mean, for example, OJ.
It's difficult.
OJ was not guilty. and then he was guilty.
If the
And
glove don't fit, you must acquit.
The two don't necessarily parallel. Fat tranny, cock vagina, is exactly what I would say if I wasn't here on YouTube. So go and subscribe on Rumble. Same channel where free speech is actually alive and well. Or you can stay here and the